Hi everyone, welcome to the new tutorial. This week I thought it would be a good time to show you how I draw males, or try and show you some techniques, some tips, a lot of things that I've learnt along the way with like working with Marvel and stuff like that. I've done a lot of superheroes, so yeah, I thought it'd be a really good one to cover. And personally, I find it a lot of fun. I kind of grew up on all this stuff, so like, my era was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. Heavy masculinity with crazy muscles and things like that. I don't know why, but I've always just like really enjoyed drawing that. And so this is going to be a lot of fun. All right, well let's dive into it. Okay, so I thought I might start off with the proportions. So I've got this guy here, and you can see that males are usually a little bit taller than women. So when it comes to proportions, just remember that, and it's about 7.5 heads tall. So I measure from the top of his head to his chin, and that's the size there. So I just marked it there. So 1, 2, all the way to 7.5, and so that's usually the general height. So if you're sketching, just try and measure it that way, like if you've got the head there, and then you should get the proportions about right. And to his crutch area, it's usually down to about 4 heads, from about there to there, and so that'll give you a good example, so you can kind of start thinking, how tall you want to go to there, because the legs are actually quite long. They're also about another, we got 4 heads, so nearly 4 heads anyway. It's usually about half the body is, half the measurement is the body, and then the other half will be the legs. So that's a pretty good way to kind of understand the proportions of a man. So you've got this guy, and he's just of a normal build, just kind of a normal. I might even fade back some of the abs and things like that a bit more. Yeah, so I've just kind of just smoothed him out a bit because he was a bit too ripped before, but the usual guy would kind of look a bit more like this, and you'll just put like a couple of little nicks and little bits of sketchy lines to resemble where maybe where some of the abs might be. But yeah, the average guy won't really usually look too ripped unless you are wanting that. But then what if we did another guy and had him super ripped? So I'm starting off with my center line, and then I've got this guy here. I might just grab a few measurements off him, so then we can make him a little bit more accurate. What I'll do is I like to start off with some nice big shapes. So what if I did just like start with the shoulders? It's always good to start with the shoulders. So I just do a nice big wide line, and then come down in a bit of a V or a triangle, just a bit more like that, and that's a good way to start. The crutch comes down here, so let's just do a bit of a square shape that'll come down for the torso and just round it off about there, and we'll just start building on it, things like that, and just gonna start shaping it a bit more. The chest line might go around this area and then come up, and we've got the I like to try and work on that neck, that big tall neckline that comes up. So if we're going to have a real muscly guy, I might go up a bit higher and actually put the neck in. Maybe the neck's a bit thicker, try and think of it like that. Shoulders, let's chuck in some shoulders now. So have it a bit more chiseled, a little bit more chiseled. So I'm kind of just, remember this is just the rough part of it, so I'm going to make him a bit more like a big Captain America kind of dude, really strong. And when I'm doing the chest, I'll come down, but then I'll like to kind of go back up a bit. And the reason being is it's kind of like a cylinder. I like to think of it as a shape you're playing with a little bit of perspective. So I usually show this kind of example. So the cylinder, is like this, and then you got the bottom of it. But what if the top of it was actually rounded off? So that's actually the top. And as you go down, it's like that. And then in the center, it's pretty much a straight line. And then as you get down here, it's more rounded off. Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit like that. And so when you get the chest, you want the chest to go there, but then it's going to kind of wrap up and over the cylinder part. That's kind of how I'm treating it. So it's kind of coming down, and then it's going to kind of wrap up over the rib cage and around a bit more like that, and then up there. So yeah, and then you can finish the chest, bring it in, and yeah, so on. So the chest is kind of like this, and it'll wrap up. Like the shoulders are their own kind of thing, and they'll kind of go here, and then they finish. But the chest, treat the chest kind of like this shape, over, up, and then like that. That's the center of the chest, and then it'll come down. You got your collarbones. Collarbones can go here, finish there if you want to, and then they go back. But and then the shoulders will kind of come out from the chest a bit more like that, So that's kind of how your chest can be, and that's a very prominent kind of almost ape-like chest because it's pushing out. So that's just a strong chest, whereas the other one's more relaxed. So keep that in mind as well. So yeah, as I'm going now, I can start to tidy it up a bit. So underneath, very big superhero-y kind of dude. So I'm just kind of drawing those big lats now down the side. The big V shape that the guys will get. I'm just going to try and start forming a little bit more now. So yeah, remember what I said. So when I'm doing my legs, I like to just throw in shapes. So kind of like this kind of circle shape to start with. I just kind of throw them in. And then same with the calves. I just kind of put like a bit of a circle shape where the calves might go like this. I just like to slap it in. And then I'll, once it's got a nice flow, I'll kind of build on that. As I'm doing this now, I'm starting to think about anatomy a little bit more. When you're doing a leg. So let's do that shape, that kind of shape, and then you've got this bit inside that comes and builds out from it. If you want to take away all that flesh, you've actually got a big muscle that comes right down the middle of it, and that's the main leg muscle that goes all the way up to the hip. You got this little one here, and that's like always going to be seen, kind of usually a little bit of a dip here. You'll usually see a bit of a dip about there, like a shadow, and then it'll merge with that big giant one that comes down. I'm not sure of the technical terms, I'm sorry, but so that's a good way I can try and explain it there. And then yeah, you'll just kind of try and have that line come down into the knee. Your knee will come here, and then hit that kind of shadowy bit there, and make sure that you still have a bit of meat that comes off the sides there. So and then you start doing your shading like that there. And if you want to start forming it, you just put the outlines on the outside like so, and then that can come up there. So that's kind of how the muscles work with the legs. And yeah, now this is where the kind of abs come, the abs. So let's start with the rib cage, which will go up like this. Do like a bit of a dip, like an arch. That's the rib cage. Now that's not going to be showing too much. This is just for me to show you some anatomy and how the structure will work. And the rib cage will come down, kind of lowish. And but then yeah, wrap it into the abs. Like I always like to do that kind of dip there. And then you can start forming these abs as well. So bit of a structure there. One. Make sure there's 6 of them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then yeah. Yeah, so the fist will come down usually a bit past the crutch area, and that's usually where that'll go. And you'll have this nice, that kind of wrist muscle that'll come down. So now that I'm starting to form it a little bit better, I'm going to just start to just put them neck muscles in. I can draw with a little bit more confidence now when I start to see some structure going on. Okay, so now I've got a rough sketch. I'm just going to fade that back, and and that's when you start cleaning it up over the top. So yeah, so basically I just wanted to explain that when you're doing a bigger guy and he's got, he's stronger, or he's more athletic, more superhero-y kind of look, yeah, compared to this guy, I definitely do like more jagged edges. You can see with these especially with these shoulders, is a good focal point. I'm always treating them like big bricks or squares on the side, you know, rather than that kind of rounded look on the other guy. I'm kind of going more like that. Not that exaggerated though, but yeah, and same with the neck muscles, like a little bit more edge to them. So as soon as I get to these triceps as well, you know, I've got more of a point to them, and it's, you know, a little bit more edgy. So when I get to things like this part here, because this part here usually joins, it's pretty smooth. So don't do like big lines like that to join it. Just, this is where you start to do the real thin ones, and just kind of, just so that it resembles where the shoulder and the chest part, kind of thing. They part ways there. And especially when I get up under here, I'm not gonna do like a big chest like I can, but I might start doing it a little finer, and then just do a little nick in the middle there, and then it's a little finer there again, and then I'll do it a bit darker here. It's always really darker under that part where the chest folds under the armpit. And then again, I'm just doing nice little lines there. So I always like to draw the wrist like here, like it's do the actual wrist and then build muscle around it, kind of thing. I don't know, I always like to do that. This big muscle that comes out of the forearm there, I might have it come up and just do like a big, it's going to wrap over the wrist. So I might even take that out, and it's going to kind of show more like that, and then it comes down to this part of the wrist here, and then it'll go up, back up again. But you know, I don't want to make it too defined, and it'll start to look weird. So let's say you've got this under, you know, just do an oval. That's the whole leg there underneath, right? But then I want to show you, like, let's have this over the top, like that. That's the one that's going to go up, and then it's like a little raindrop there. Or you can actually treat it more like that goes around the whole leg now. So that under bit there is going to be the red folding under, and over the top you've got this big blue thing. That's kind of how I wanted to explain that, you know. And then you might have, you know, the little bit of that red showing back up here where the hip comes in, and then the blue over the top. So do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like the muscles folding over and wrapping over it. So again, now when I'm coming to draw it, so I'm going to do that. I usually kind of like do that and stop there, and then I'll get that kind of swoop up over here until it joins up to about this area here. And then I might even do that big muscle next that I was talking about, the one that goes from here, and it's really big and it goes up there. And then we'll finish this one down here, which dips up over the knee. So you can actually put your knee in, but have it kind of like folding underneath it like this. So that's your knee there, and it's kind of getting folded underneath these muscles. You see how they kind of go over it like that? So that's kind of a good way to think of that. And then yeah, you'll just make sure you keep this meaty bit that comes down the side. You want to make sure there's still a straight kind of leg behind there that's coming down. It's not just the knee. And then yeah, I like to do that kind of, this is the shin bone, and then you'll do the calf muscle that comes around it, and they'll just kind of keep going down into the ankle, you know. And then you can have the ankle pop out, and I always like to do this and go up and treat it like it's just like an action figure, you know, and there's like a foot that comes out there, and then it's at the bottom, and if you want to, you can even draw that kind of bend in the toes there where that goes. And we're going to do the abs a bit better. So with a superhero, you'll do them a bit more kind of, I always like to darken this part a little bit more here, where the rib cage will kind of join and get a bit darker, and then I'll do the ab flowing from that, and it joins in the middle there. Now the first two are usually kind of pretty defined, and so there again, I'm doing that kind of darker bit, and then up and over, and then it kind of comes back up, and it does a bit of a funny thing here, you know. We can start to add those kind of side muscles in. They're not really seen too well there. But yeah, as you go down into the abs, the second ab, I like to kind of go the dark part there and then dip down. So I always like to dip down into the next ab. And you can draw it in a bit better if you want, but they start to kind of fade out as they get lower. So don't do them as defined as you go down into the abs. So this one's usually just like a side one, like you'll probably see the belly button there, but don't do that line in the middle because that's going to look a bit weird. You don't really see it too much. You can do a fine little tap of a thing there, but that's about it. And that's a good way to kind of do abs there. And yeah, this guy is super ripped. Chuck a couple of nipples in if you want. So there's a good way to kind of explain this guy. I could finish him, but I'll just leave it at there for now so we can move on. But you can see a clear difference between these two. So you've got the regular looking dude, he still is kind of ripped and pretty fit looking. But then you've got the superhero look where it's like I said, more edged shoulders, very, very pointy edges, and just play around with your detail and study anatomy as well, so you understand where the muscle groups are and things like that. I'll try and explain some of the bicep ones a little bit better. So let's go over here, and I just want to explain, like, let's draw the bicep from the side. So if we do like the superhero look again, so this will be the shoulder, okay? So you got the shoulder. I'm just roughly doing it, and then the bicep. Let's have him curling his arm. He's doing the bicep curl. Like, see how I'm adding a bit more crunch to it, so it's not just a super circle like that. I'm doing more, but I'm also adding a bit more line work to it a little bit. So, basically you want to come down and then up for the bicep, okay? You'll have the tricep coming up and around. Elbow can come down. You can have it super sharp if you want and pointy, but I usually like to add just a tiny curve to it. Get that bone, like I actually draw the bone first. So this is the bone in the arm. Comes up, bit of a dip, and then draw the wrist muscle come poking out like that. That's what I like to do. So it's coming out, and then have your point in your. I'm drawing the point there now in the elbow, and again I'm just drawing the kind of the bone there. But so this muscle here, right? So this is going to be the muscle for the what do you call it? The wrist muscle. Kind of comes down and it swoops up and it joins into up this area here. Kind of nearly comes up like that. All right. So you're going to have a bit of join in there, and it just bends around. But what you can do is, like, I like to add a little bit of shadow here. So a bit of shadow under there where it's a bit darker, comes up. And then you'll have another kind of wrist muscle coming out from that bit there. And then, let's just put the actual fist in. So what I mean about that little bend in the wrist muscle, I always like to think of it, but it kind of comes around like this. So this one here, and it comes up, and it's like swoops up and around. You can almost treat it like a bit of a teardrop that bends around like that. And that's kind of a good way. And then you'll have that other streak that kind of pulls out. There's another tendon or something that comes out there. So if I'm going to explain I just want to explain the arm a bit better, because one of the biggest things about drawing big superhero-y kind of guys, or the male, is, you want to usually like to make them, it's the arms that usually stand out. You want to make sure you got good arms. So this is the shoulder. I'll just do a straight arm down. Just let me do a straight arm, and then bicep coming out. And remember, this is a side shot, so bicep, tricep. Like, I do the overall kind of shape first. Right, so this is the wrist, comes up into the elbow there. All right, you'll kind of see a little bit of the back muscle of the arm there coming up. So there's our elbow right there, that circle, and then we're going up into the tricep. Now this is where it gets interesting. So the tricep muscle is always like this, kind of swoops over, and then it'll go up like that, and then it'll tuck around the back. Do you see what I mean? So it's kind of like tucks around it. Think of it like if this is a tube, or some kind of shape, and it's almost kind of hugging it. So it's like this, wrapping around, and then like that. So it's kind of like that. So if that was some kind of cylinder shape, you know, and then you got this thing wrapping around it. And that's how you do the tricep, you know, and then the bicep will come up like a bit more like that. And then, yeah, that muscle that comes down that I said on the wrist, and it kind of wraps over that way. So it's kind of like, and then up. That's another way to kind of explain how an arm can work and how you can make an arm look better. So another thing I kind of want to explain is just the this kind of angle here again. So I want to try and explain that a little better. So if you're going to have a guy who's like a very chunky superhero guy, right? And you got his like neck muscle there, and okay. So sorry about that. I was just trying to tidy this up a bit so I can just explain this a bit better. But yeah, when you're doing a really cool kind of superhero-y guy, these muscles, like the good thing I always like to do when I'm drawing, especially kind of hulking guys or someone who's really muscular, I focus on this kind of armpit part here, but I really like to make those pec muscles really come out because they actually wrap up over like this from the shoulder. When you rip away all the muscles, they kind of come out like this, and then they all bend up around the chest. So that's kind of how the muscles will go. And you know, you'll have your shoulder ones and then an extra shoulder one coming out there. But yeah, so when you're doing a guy, I always like to add a really hulking kind of muscle just under here that might join out from the pec and up there maybe. And especially if they're really flexing and it's like super strong. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing chest muscles like this guy here. So if you want to really make him ripped, so I like to add in a couple of little lines up here, and he looks like he's really extra strong. Okay, so another thing I want to talk about is the back muscles. So doing, you know, how do you draw like the back muscles of like a big superhero-y kind of dude? All right, so I'll just try and sketch up like a rough kind of just a side angle of a guy. Okay, so now I've got a rough kind of look at this guy's back. The way I want to explain it is you just kind of do a big, let me just put this over the top. It's kind of like a really big up like triangle that kind of wraps over his back. So think of it like that kind of thing, and then it goes all the way up to his neck. So it's kind of like that, okay? So that's kind of a good way to think about that. Then you also have this kind of big dip there that kind of joins up. It's kind of hard to explain, but you got the back of your shoulder right there, right? Then you'll have this other kind of dip down there, something like that. And it goes back up, and then you got the shoulder there again, okay? And then you always have the tricep kind of up over like that. And then as you get to the bottom of this triangle and you want to continue down the back, you just have this another big, like something like this, and then it just wraps up and around the body. Or it kind of comes down, you know that big V on the side, the lats? They kind of come down here, I think, and then they just go back up. Like, but you're not going to see them, so you don't actually really see them. You just treat it like that, okay? And then you just have your spine continue. And then the hips kind of go in about there somewhere, so they come up and wrap over like that. And again, I like to treat it like, you know, a bit of a action figure. So like, you know, the hips can kind of come in like that. And that's a pretty good way to kind of understand the back a bit. So first thing I like to think of is that big, you know, that big triangle, and I just build from that. That's the first thing I think about. And there is a lot more to that. If you really got him super ripped, you know, there's a couple of little lines that come out, but I just do like little ones, so they just kind of reef up like that, you know. So you just do little ones though, and it's just like little muscle lines that come up. But that's mostly how you'll do the back. Alright, so I think it's time I do an action pose or a couple of action poses or something. Just to kind of, that's a really good way to kind of explain how to draw a male, you know, because they're always in action or something, especially if you're drawing for comics or if you just want to have a bit of fun with it. And that's like the main way, you know, usually you're not doing static poses and stuff. So let's try and do something a bit more action-y. Okay, so I'm going to do the classic kind of coming at you pose. So I might do a bit of a swoop like that, and torso can kind of go about here. And yeah, just kind of build from it from this, I reckon. And once you have your sketch all, like your rough sketch all ready to go, yeah, I'll just fade it back and start tidying it up a bit. So yeah, it's good to have, you know, a nice gesture, something like, I really want that lunging kind of at you kind of look. So yeah, now I'm just going to tidy it up a bit, and I'll show you what, like those little things I was talking about with, so like when doing shoulders and things like that, I'm adding a bit more edge to it. And a bit more, you know, I'm just trying to think of, to make it look cool. You want to make it look really cool and interesting as well. So I might fade that back a little bit more so I can actually see my lines. And yeah, now I'm thinking of the neck muscles, you know, things like that, nice and chunky, and a little bit of an edge there. And yeah, like I said, with the shoulders, they're really interesting. So let's it goes in about there usually at this kind of angle. So it'll go in like, it'll kind of look a bit more like that, you know, once I'm done with it. So, but not as defined. Like I don't want that big dark line there. So just do that for now. And again, like I said before with the chest, you're not going to do a big connecting thing like that. It'll just be like probably where the armpit goes, you'll see a bit of a dip, and then maybe up here. So it's not completely joined, and then you'll see a bit of a dip up there, and then now this neck muscle here, this one that comes down, that usually actually dips into the shoulder, kind of like that, but they kind of clash together. So you do it about half and half, kind of like there and then stop. So it's not always like that, but yeah, so it'll kind of be like that. So you don't have to draw it in so much though, because it's not going to be showing. So yeah, now just do the collarbone. Now, do you remember what I told you about those muscles, the chest muscles, and they kind of come out like this? So this is a really good example. So I want to actually have one kind of like folding out like that, and I'm just going to take away that bit under the armpit there, so it looks like it really is folding out from the chest there, and then maybe I'll just have a little one there, so it's kind of all looks like it's joining. Now see how I'm doing the leg? It's kind of, I want it to be coming up a bit more, but you see how I've got this kind of point in the middle there? I love doing stuff like that, so it's like more like that, like the leg and then the knee, rather than doing it just like a curve. I like to add a bit of an edge to it, just a bit, and that's gonna give it like a nice comic touch, or you know, make it seem a bit more yeah, just interesting. And yeah, so now I'm just doing the knee, fold that knee over. So the knee, you need to treat it like again, so it's kind of like these muscles are coming out. So the knee, like the whole leg, you gotta remember, is a bone. So it's one big bone going that way, then it stops, and then it's going to be like a square at the end, and it folds down, okay, and folds under, or you can just have it kind of bend. But then you know, you got to remember there's muscles folding over the top, so you'll have this big muscle here kind of coming up, and then it's folding up and over, but you're not going to have it showing all that kind of definition there. It's just, this usually merges and it all kind of, yeah. But yeah, you kind of have that there, and then that little dark bit there to kind of show that the knee is popping out of it. Again, you can have this big muscle kind of showing up here a little bit if you want to, and that's kind of coming out through there. Because you got to remember there's this big muscle that comes out like this. So it's about there and there. It's kind of like that. That's the big leading muscle, I think, that helps you lift your leg. So that's that one. And then you'll have this other one here. It's like a big chunk right there. And then the other side of it as well. Kind of similar, but that goes straight up. Yeah, so that's probably a good example there. And then, you know, like I said before, we have that kind of big swooping, like it keeps going up around this way. I know it's weird, but it's kind of bending up over that side of the leg. And then you'll have your middle thigh kind of underneath. Now again, I'm trying to just think of that knee coming down. Remember, because this is actually like, that's the bone, all right? And then you're going to have these muscles folding over the knee, coming up, and it will do that big swooping thing again, and it will go this way. And again, these muscles on the legs, so it kind of comes down, you know, you got that big one in the middle, the big center one. Kind of comes up like that, and then it'll keep going up into the hip here. I'm just going to do the rib area. So that kind of comes up. Remember the big arch comes over, and then it'll finish there. So you can do that. And I'm starting to add a little bit more definition. I want the first two abs to kind of show nice and prominent. A bit more like that. The second abs are actually going to be quite hidden because they're really under there. But that's a bit of an action pose for you to show you how I can make it look heroic, more edgy, more interesting, just by using all those kind of techniques with the lines and things like that. So, you know, it's more edgy, kind of interesting lines. Think of anatomy, the muscles, like the way that one comes out of the chest, things like that. So that's a good way to kind of, yeah, just make your characters look a bit more interesting and a bit better. Okay, so I might try another pose now. Something a bit different. Maybe I always do like a big raging pose, you know, like I always like to do these kind of ones. So I just want to make it really quite dynamic. Try and get some perspective. And again, I might do like a nice big hulking kind of pose, you know what I mean? Like really big kind of dude. And he's like really angry or crazy and upset or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, these are always a lot of fun. So one way that I think would be a good way to tackle this is like I'm drawing literally just like this big bendy tube like here for the waist, and then just kind of, you know, you're gonna have this big torso kind of wrapping around it like this, and I think that's going to be a really good way to kind of tackle it, you know what I mean? So kind of like that, and that's the big torso. The proportions are pretty crazy on this and a bit whack, but yeah, you kind of understand, you can kind of see where I'm going with it. Trying to get that real superhero-y kind of, it doesn't even have to be a superhero, it can be like a big villain or something. And I'm trying to just get all the anatomy in place now. So he's kind of like raging out, maybe like Goku or something, you know. I don't know. He's a bit big for Goku. Yeah, this guy's massive. So, you know, and then we start working on some of the, anatomy, muscles and stuff like that. I'm just trying to roughly throw them in. So I just want to explain that kind of waist thing again that I had. So the waist is kind of like a big tube like this, right? You know, and it's like a cylinder that I always like to refer to these cylinder things, but it's the best way to explain it. And you know, and then that cylinder is curving around, you know, and it's bending because he's arching his back. So just treat it like a big cylinder, kind of like this. And then, you know, you've got the torso that literally wraps around it and hugs it. and it's hugging it, and then it's like up and over, and that's your big torso that's going to come out of it, you know. And you can shape your shoulders onto that and put some shoulders on it and things, and then you know, get the chest to go over the top too, and have that kind of merge up to where your shoulders are, and then start to form the collarbones, and that's your chest, you know, things like that. So that's kind of how I treat that. And then yeah, I like to make sure I get these, you know, the shin bone, make sure that's quite prominent there. You can even merge it with the knee there, and then just have that muscle pop out the side of the calf there. And then I'm going to finish that other calf muscle there. Yeah, cool. Oh, I'll probably build on this guy. I might build on it and turn him into somebody. I'm always thinking I might turn him into Venom or something. Maybe I still got to keep it like a man, don't I? Maybe like Eddie Brock turning into Venom. That'd be pretty cool, I reckon. And another cool thing, you know, you've seen me do it a bunch of times, but do liquefy in Photoshop. So if you're not happy with proportions, yeah, just you've got your rough, just liquefy it and move it around. So I'll show you what I mean. So liquefy, and then yeah, just muck around with it. So now that I know that I think I'm going to do Venom, I want to make his top half like really bulky, solid, like really thick as well, so like he's really massive, you know. And I just want to pop that chest right out, kind of like I did in that little example that I showed you just a little while ago. So yeah, I want this chest to be huge and pop it right out. So I'm trying not to go too crazy because I kind of like the proportions as it is. He's not that hulking Venom. He's more like a the way I've drawn him here, just by luck, is more of the taller kind of 9-foot Venom. You know, really tall but kind of lean, but also really muscly as well. So that's kind of what I'm going for. And I need to get that head and put that head up or wherever I think it needs to belong. See, that's a bit better. So before I liquefied, it was that, and now it's that. So that to that, that to that. And you know, another thing that I always find helps is you zoom out, do a free transform, and then flip horizontal, and you can really see the any mistakes, like, because your eye will now adjust like from a different angle. It's kind of like seeing your picture from a fresh perspective, like, or it's almost like seeing your picture like from new eyes. So flipping it is very important. Now I'm seeing I kind of need to pop that chest out a little bit more. He just looks a bit flat, kind of like he's squashed. So I'm actually going to pop it right out like it's 3D in a way. So big time. And them lats I think need to come down more so he looks more rounded. Bigger arms too. Bigger arms, bigger shoulders. Alright, so I'll just show you now. So this is after. So way back before I started doing these, like, he was looking okay. He's more leaner, but now I've bulked him out. So there's the new one. So before I did liquefy, and then after. So you can see I've really popped his chest out even more now, and then and his head's a bit taller. Like he looks a bit taller overall, and that's before and that's after. So I just think that looks a bit better, and I think we're going to go with that. So now I'm just fading back my sketch. I'm going to like detail it a bit now. I just really think it's important to see it in detail, to understand everything that I've done with it. So when doing the abs, you know, they're the cooler parts, so we just want to make sure we get them right. And I usually just whip them in and try and get a nice shape. So that's not too bad. Now I've got that kind of bit there. And see how I'm just kind of using a couple of streaks here and there to resemble some muscle shape. So just sketch it out. Like, so this is that kind of arch that goes over. And I'm making that quite big. It's almost made his abs look a bit too... Those top two are massive. I think that's wrong, but I'll just leave it for now. I'll just do some slight adjusting. Now, like with Venom, you can see I'm really actually adding a lot more of the muscular. Like I want him to be ripped and like massive, like a bodybuilder. So I really am showing these muscles a bit more now. So yeah, good example for a male anatomy, I thought, just because he's so huge, and we can really just exaggerate the hell out of it all, really. So yeah, I still really like that kind of big bump out there, so I'm gonna try and keep that, make it look huge, like he's swollen. Yeah, so I'm really adding a lot of these heavy muscles. So this one here looks like it's got a bit of weight to it. It's kind of like hanging almost, and then I'll have it tuck over that knee there and join back up there. And we need to get that knee probably a little bit more over to the right there, so I'm going to try and move that. Right, so the body is mostly there. Body is mostly there now. And yeah, so getting there, I might just do the head. Now I know it's like, since he's Venom, what I mean is I'm actually going to be adding the symbiote, like crazy stuff around him, and he's going to have them teeth kind of forming around his head. I thought, let's do something crazy like that. So this is Eddie Brock, and he's going to be like screaming out. So here, I might even add like a bit of a, what do you call it? When people scream, they're kind of like pushing the skin down under their neck. So let's give him like a bit of a double chin there. And I think that'll look really cool and a bit more natural. Alright, so I've got him raging, like I've done the head and all that stuff now, so yeah, he's raging out, so let me just quickly chuck in that Venom stuff. Okay, so there we go. I've yeah, finished him up. That'll do for Venom. Thought it'd be fun to just have him. Yeah, he's kind of like forming into Venom. So that's Eddie Brock in there, and he's gonna. Yeah, I thought that'd be cool to have the eye of Venom kind of wrapping over his head there. Yeah, so that's that so far. I tried to do the symbol on over the abs and stuff, you know. But yeah, but this kind of helps, you know, explain, yeah, we got muscle tone, like a really bulky kind of guy, and we can really explain, you know, get these muscles showing and things like that. But when you have a more slimmer dude, you know, fade those right back, and then it's all right. I want to show you another cool trick when doing, you know, male figures, or it can work with anyone, female figures as well. But I just thought it would be good to show you this trick in this tutorial. Sometimes it's really helpful, especially when doing gestures, to really simplify the base of your character first. So they're just literally just shapes. So what if I just did like this big plane, like this, and it's like a shape, right? So this, just pretend this is torso, all right? So it's kind of like that. I mean, what can I do with that, you know? That's just pretend that's the torso, and then what if I build on that, sorry, and then you do, you know, your figure, and you got the shoulder, torso. Sorry, it's very rough, but this is just going to give you a rough idea. And then, you know, you build on that, and that'll be your kind of figure and so on. All right, and then you have your neck and all that other shoulder coming out. So can you kind of see where that's going? And the reason I say this is because because of that shape underneath, I'm following it, and that's the kind of guide there. But what if we did a pose that's like really out there and really crazy? So imagine that plane that I showed you, that big flat board that's bendy, like it's big. Just think of it as a big rubber board, and then it's going to be a torso. What if I did it like this? So if we had like this thing, and then it's like really bending around, so it's kind of like that, and you're bending that plane all the way around, and then the other end of it is like really coming out this way. I mean, what can you do with that? Well, like, what if you treat it like this, and you do, you got your character, your torso, right, and then the top, the rib cage and everything. I'm just trying to like show you what you could do if you use that technique, and then you fling back the other part. You have the waist, pretend that's the waist, and his spine's going to come up here and then out. I'm just trying to figure out this. Let's just throw an arm out that way, throw the shoulder out the back that way, and you'll be surprised what you can do with those kind of techniques. You can probably push yourself a little bit further by understanding those kind of planes and things like that, those the shape, the bendy kind of thing I showed you. So if I now I can like really push this into another gesture that is pretty dynamic. You can really do anything you want. So let's just pretend that the head's there and so on, and then you fling out a leg, have that leg like really flinging out right there, push the other leg right back. It's a very superhero-y kind of pose. That's the other foot there, you know what I mean? So it's, if I I'll just finish that little hand there, wherever that hand's going to go. So if I hide that, so that's the kind of shape, and then, you could do that kind of pose with it. So he's bending his whole body around, and then this knee is like bringing that other part of his body toward us a little bit more. Sorry, it's quite rough, so it's really hard to kind of understand, but I hope you can see that right there, and the way he's twisting. He's twisting around that way. So yeah, that's just another trick I thought I might show you. Okay, so we've gone through a few things here today in this tutorial. So I think that's good. We've really gone through how to draw the male anatomy and structure and techniques and things like that. So I hope that's helped in some way. And what else have we got here? So we learnt how, with these little panel things, the bendy kind of rubbery panel I like to call them, that's a good technique. So, this one's more of a plain straight on one, and then you can bend it, like go really crazy and really wrap it and bend it around, and you get this kind of figure. You just got to kind of practice on that a bit. And that's a good technique. And action poses, we've got a little bit more in anatomy and how to draw certain muscles and in the male anatomy, such as the shoulder and the triceps around here. We really how to go at that, those pectoral muscles that can kind of continue through the shoulder and aim inward, things like that. So and the difference between body types, muscle groups and things like that. The back, we had a little go at the back muscle there. I just drew a little Venom face on him for you. And and the way I did this cylinder thing, and then the torso can kind of wrap around it. See, that's how I kind of do that rib cage bit there. That's a pretty cool technique. And of course we've done Venom as well. So Eddie Brock kind of transforming into Venom. A bit of fun there. So went through a bit of those muscle groups and tidying up as well. So, but yeah, there we go, everyone. I hope you got a bit out of that, and I had a lot of fun doing this tutorial. I always do. I love doing them. So yeah, you know, one day I might do. I think I'd like to focus on an anatomy tutorial. So really do anatomy and actually kind of break up the muscle groups more and more defined. So it doesn't have to be just males. It can be all around everything. I'd also like to do another tutorial on different body types, as in, you know, like how do you draw a big Hulk, like a real hulking monster, compared to just a normal skinny dude. All different body types. Alright everyone, thanks for watching, and yeah, there's more to come. See you next time.